Hi there, Jeff Ritter here with Worldly Experiences, and I'm here with Steve Cupp, graphic designer and artist in New York City. Lives in New York City, but originally from the Pittsburgh region, and we're going to talk a little bit about how he got to his position and how he got to all the interesting things you're doing. Is it a complicated life being an artist design today with all the different things you've done? You have one job, but you do a lot of other things too?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good summary. The creative career, I mean, I was trained as a graphic designer, probably more than 10 years ago, which meant one thing back then. That entire career field has branched out in so many different ways. Uh, there's a lot. You can specialize in one very specific area, or you can be trying to do multiple things at once, sometimes with greater or lesser success. But yeah.
Well, you start out like, I mean, is it one of those stories that starts out typically you're artistic as a kid,
Mm.
drawing all the time, that kind of thing?
Yeah, look, when I grew up, everybody told me like, yeah, that's great. You really like drawing. We see that, but there's really nothing you can do as a career. You're not going to make money doing that. And
Uh-huh.
really, I mean, I think we all know that's not true at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen video games blow up and become a multi-billion-dollar industry. Advertising is the same way. Pretty much everything that you can think of requires art and design in some way. Like you will find somewhere that you fit.
Hmm.
You'll get to create things.
But you started out drawing for fun as a kid, in art school and in classes and things like that, or were you self-taught?
I would say when I was really young, it was self-taught. It
Hmm.
wasn't until high school that I really started taking classes, trying to, well, basically just draw better. It wasn't until I went to college that I really started doing anything like really career focused that
Hmm.
I would consider design. So it was probably college when I first used Photoshop. Now, Photoshop, everybody probably has that on their computer now. They've
Hmm.
been using that since they were a kid. When I was in school, we had a class called typing. They taught us how to type on a computer. Pretty sure you don't do that anymore. It's just somehow this learning happens on its own for a lot of people at a much younger age.
Now, is there, just for definition's sake, uh, the difference between art and design, being an artist or drawing and design, is there some big differentiation between those two?
Um, there's a lot of overlap, but yeah, specifically, I'd say design or illustration, anything like commercial art. It's about communication.
Okay.
You're trying to communicate some kind of idea or feeling for a purpose, usually. So specifically, I was trained as a designer, and usually that you get more into things like advertising or logo design and branding, where you're really trying to evoke some kind of message.
So there's all those commercial purposes, but design can also be communicating an idea or a concept that's not for commercial, just to promulgate an idea or a person or something or anything, right?
Oh, absolutely. I also work, I freelance as an illustrator. So what happens there, I do a lot of editorial work. So a magazine or a newspaper will get in touch with me and they'll say, hey, we have an article that we need you to illustrate. And that illustration will have to somehow convey what's going on in the article.
Huh?
So
Do
it
they
needs to relate back to that.
do they give you ideas of what to draw, or do you get to come up with that yourself?
Usually they don't. They want me to do all the work. They don't have
It's your
time.
idea completely. So you read the.
Well, there's layers to it.
Uh-huh.
I'll usually submit 3 or 4 ideas as concept sketches,
Uh-huh.
and then they'll get back to me with like, yeah, we really like this one, or the editor doesn't like this, or we can't do that, or
Yeah.
usually we'll find some path to go on from there. And
That's interesting. I never knew who comes up with those ideas, but they're usually pretty
oh
clever.
yeah.
Figures it's the artist who does that. So, what was it like? You're transferring your desire, your abilities in art and drawing to computer. Is it a big difference? Did you have to make a big leap to do that on computer instead of with paper?
Yeah, it was, especially because at the time the computers were still not that good. We didn't have the tablets to draw on. I mean, they were very rudimentary. They were difficult. You weren't drawing directly onto a screen. The versions of Photoshop and InDesign that we were working with were still fairly early. So, I grew in my skills as a lot of that software and hardware was also developing, which again, right now, it's just far more robust. There's so much out there and
Yeah.
it's so good right now.
So what was your first Photoshop class? Was it intimidating or was it fun? Or was it like, I'm venturing into a new thing?
It's a little bit of both because it's software, it's really technical.
Yeah.
You have the creative fundamentals that you need for anything, whether it's on the paper or the computer or wherever. They're just basic fundamentals of design theory and creativity that
Mm-hmm.
you need to work on and learn. But yeah, the very technical skills of knowing the software, it can be tedious. And even in my career right now, I'm maybe 10 years into my career,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still learning things. I'm still trying to decide where to go next. So I'm learning 3D software right now, and it's it's something brand new to me.
Yeah.
And it's a new software, and it's a new series of reading and listening to tutorials and making things that aren't really that good, but you got to make the garbage stuff
Yeah.
to build those skills until you can actually make something good.
And a question I've heard a lot, can software make you into a better artist or you still have to be a good artist?
No, I mean, the computer is a tool. So like a pencil or a pen, if it's garbage in, garbage out.
No.
You gotta, yeah.
Still take some talent. You still take some talent, still valued for something, I guess. I hope. Now, tell us about something about college. I mean, you made a big choice to go to Art Institute instead of liberal arts college, or even go to an associate's degree, or maybe even not go to college. What made you decide to go to really a design-centered art school?
Uh, well, I went to college because that's what you were expected to do after high school.
Hmm.
I'm not sure that's recommended so much these days, and I encourage people to look around and consider alternate things. But yeah, I don't know, a liberal arts college wouldn't be specified enough, really.
Yeah,
So I really wanted to be somewhere that would teach me the skills to start immediately into a career upon graduating. Now, I would say I wouldn't recommend the Art Institute.
yeah,
I would say, look, it's very complicated. You're young, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what to look for. You don't know how to evaluate colleges. You don't know what a for-profit institution is, maybe.
and
Certain
different.
things may have been misrepresented to me, both financially and,
Yeah,
yeah, I wouldn't, the Art Institute as an organization hasn't been very supportive or
and maybe
not.
why they're out of business too.
Yeah, they have declared bankruptcy. So
So you would say, I mean, even for a nonprofit art school, would you might even say to a young person, maybe college or art school isn't where you even necessarily have to go.
yeah, I think the entire landscape has changed dramatically. And I think there's more that you can do with your time and money. I'm not spending any more money on like official classes through any colleges, but I'm still learning things.
Mhm.
You can, I don't know, I've hired people. I've never really cared what their resume said as far as the school went. We look at the portfolio. It's more about
Yeah.
the portfolio and, what your previous jobs are, which is, it's tough.
So having some creative ideas and abilities combined with
Mm-hmm.
the software, which you might have to take classes in or do certifications in or online training in those. But that could, if you have enough talent, you might be able to skip school or go right to work.
Oh yeah, and there are smaller non-accredited things that you can do. There's a group called General Assembly here in New York. You can take courses. You don't get a bachelor's degree, but it's much cheaper and it's more focused on just learning the skills that you want to learn. And yeah, I mean, these smaller groups are popping up, and I think they're going to supplant colleges for a lot of different areas.
Yeah, there's a lot of uh, ways to learn the software, not just on your own.
Yeah,
Learning
but you
software
can. You
sometimes is
certainly
hard.
can.
Yeah,
I've met a lot of people that were self-taught, and they do fantastic work.
yeah.
They get hired. They're making good money.
And now those software packages can be complicated, but you said earlier they don't really include programming, or do you do some programming by now?
Ooh, programming, I don't do so much of that. I know a little bit of HTML. I can do some web stuff, which is good because one of the things you really need to do is maintain a web presence, keep a portfolio online where people can find it. So I can build and maintain that myself. I don't have to
Okay,
pay anybody. I don't have to go through third parties. So that's
that's all.
good.
Yeah,
It depends what you want to do. I mean, to say you're a
not that
designer
I'm not
is,
Java or uh,
yeah.
Python. It wouldn't be necessary to know those to do a computer design.
Oh, not really, but potentially, if you want to be a tech artist for a video game company, it might help that you know how to work with Unity or Unreal Engine or something. And there's coding and stuff involved with that some designers do need.
Yeah, the Unity and the platforms for video games. Is that a good spot for artists now? Is that a major job area?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has been for a long time. They need a lot. I mean, there's the tech artists that work with things within the engine. There are the modelers that build things. You get background artists that need to create the world, concept artists that need to come up with the ideas and the overall image for the game.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a huge industry. It's a huge creative industry.
I've heard actually some of those jobs can be tedious if you have to make assets all day, making swords of different kinds or things like that.
I
Have you
can
ever
tell
done?
you any job can be tedious. I mean, that's unfortunately part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you'll never be fully engaged
yeah.
100% of the time, and that's
I mean,
probably okay.
it's probably fun to be involved with the game, but sometimes there's the boring parts of every job, I guess,
Mhm.
is what they tell. We had a compositor on who works in movies, and he does incredible things in movies, but they take forever to do tiny changes and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's great. I notice you do some artwork that's politically oriented. Is that part of your interest too?
Yeah, so I mean, that ties into the work I do for magazines and newspapers. So it's, not everything is political, but oftentimes it is. And
Yeah.
that's, I guess, one of the things I specialize in.
Shepard Fairey really turned the world on its head with his stuff with Obama.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
I don't think anybody used to know an artist's name that
yeah.
widely until he came along, and it's probably a permanent part of the political landscape now. Are you doing anything for the current uh, campaigns? Are you doing any artwork
Um,
related to that?
Officially for them, no,
No,
not
you do
not
stuff
often.
that's related to your own.
But yeah, I'm still producing stuff on my own and putting it out there. I'm still, getting the occasional call from magazines to do something here and there.
Mhm.
They try not to affiliate too much, but I was just published in a collection of political art called Not Normal, Art in the Age of Trump, where
Uh-huh.
a lot of artwork from the past 4 years got collected and printed up in a big coffee table book that you
Oh,
can get
nice.
online.
Uh-huh.
So that was fun.
It's pretty interesting to see that. That brings me to really important part of it is that art is communicative in a way that almost nothing else is. Right? I mean, how does that work? I mean, there's so many other things in society people see all the time, movies and television, and they're always listening to music. They're always tweeting and doing other things. But art has a different kind of communication. What do you think is the way that works?
Oof.
Good question. I got big question.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it is art and design is about communication. It's feel this way or buy this thing or don't vote for this person or
Yeah.
whatever. You're visually communicating a message, and at some level that gets converted into numbers. Somebody says like, did this make us sell more things? Did this get
Yeah.
more people to play the game? Did this, you know, sell enough subscriptions to the newspaper or whatever? There's some end goal somewhere usually.
It's almost because it's instead of being a large collaborative piece of work like television or movies or writing, we sort of know that it comes from one person's vision. Maybe that's something that adds to the unconscious persuasiveness about it. It's not always one person, right? It's probably
Mhm.
combined, but when it is when either way, it comes from a human. It's not machine made, even though there's computers in between. It seems like it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes it feel more personal, and that helps when you're communicating the message. People will react better when they feel like they're being spoken to, and not
Yeah,
that it's just coming from some big, faceless, nameless corporation.
yeah. Yeah, it brings the level of sincerity. I don't know if there's insincere art. There probably is somewhere, and but it is interesting to think about. And you're talking about the future. There's so many things developing in technology. 3D, virtual worlds, virtual reality. Is art going to play a big role in those? I guess it is.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, it already does, and it will continue to do so. When I graduated college, I studied to be a graphic designer, and that at that year point, it meant print. You'd be designing for print, putting layouts, getting them mocked up for 4-color separation. The year I graduated, the first iPhone was released.
Uh
I immediately entered a world that had changed and that I had not been trained for.
huh.
The interactive and mobile revolution, it changed everything. It just opened up so much more opportunities. Like, you can, if you want to, be a sort of general creative like I do, or you can get really specific. You can do user interface and user experience stuff. And to really dumb it down, that means, figuring out how an app or a website should be laid out, like why the buttons should be here, why they should do certain things, how you visually navigate an experience. That has become a very narrow field where people can get a degree in just that and spend probably the rest of their lives doing only that. We weren't so specialized when I went to school.
How do you connect that to design and art? I mean, when I've heard people talk about user interface and user experience, I think of almost psychology, uh,
Oh,
testing
that's,
people, but which works better, A or B. But is
yeah.
there an artistic sensibility to it that makes a big difference?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, there is the technical part. It's certainly a psychological base, but yeah, I mean, it's art. It's a thing you're looking at.
Yeah,
You have to understand what it's trying to communicate and what it's doing, and it needs to be intuitive.
yeah.
You look at a painting, you need to understand what's going on in the painting. You don't want someone to stand there and explain the painting to you. When you look at your phone, you need to be able to tell what it's doing and what to do next without having to read through a whole paragraph explaining what to do next.
Hmm.
So yeah, there's actually a lot of overlap, believe it or not.
So an artist knows how to draw somebody's eye a certain direction, how to bring your attention
Right.
different ways, and a psychologist may not.
I mean, yeah, they
It
have
might.
some, they certainly have useful information for that.
It's a good example of the things that we have today, which are almost everything is interdisciplinary. You don't learn just one thing anymore. I
Right.
mean, you probably do some accounting. You never studied accounting, but you're a freelancer. You have to do a little bit of
Yeah. I
accounting.
mean,
You may not want to.
for good or bad, I'm managing freelancers. I am hiring artists. And part of that involves making sure they get paid,
Yeah.
doing the paperwork, signing off on things, because I'm telling them I'll give them money if they do a certain thing. And I got to make sure that my company is going to follow through on that and actually pay them.
Yeah, and that's
It's
there are people who study human resources, and that's all they do. But we don't bring that into anybody else's major or anybody else's field and say, you might end up managing people. You might have to know something about
we should. I wish somebody had taught me how to do my taxes.
it.
You know,
That's a big one. That's a big one people talk about. Let's go
yeah.
back in time a little bit. Again, like you mentioned, what did guidance counselors say to you in high school? What did your advisors say to you in college about jobs? Did you say you didn't get enough advice or enough direction?
Oh yeah, high school. I If I had known anything like I do now, I wouldn't have probably made any of the decisions I did, just because there was no guidance. Honestly, it's like, yeah, what do you want to do? And it's not really useful advice now because the world's changed so much.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do, and my guidance counselor, I mean, it wasn't expected for a lot of people from where I come from that they would go to college. And I think the majority of my graduating class probably didn't. But
Mhm.
that's because I'm from the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, so it's a slightly different situation for some
Yeah.
people. Um,
But there weren't there's still, even then, there weren't the kind of jobs there used to be out getting out of high school that you could just walk
yeah.
into a company and start out there. It was starting to disappear. Even back then, you needed additional training or direction or skills of some kind. And colleges aren't always the way. I agree. And it's getting harder and harder for colleges to do that, to know
Mhm.
what to do or to keep up what's going on. Let's go forward again. Oh no, you said also in college the same thing. You weren't prepared for the technology that just happened while you're
Yeah.
in college. How come they didn't keep up with that kind of thing? I mean, they could have known that apps were coming. It wasn't that far away, but
Oh, they probably should have. I mean, they did try to teach us a little bit of, internet stuff, but,
yeah,
web design, but it wasn't at that point the major part of the curriculum. And I think that was just a failing on their part as an institution. I think there were probably other schools that were doing more at the time.
and it moved so fast at the time. It
Yeah,
changed almost every couple of months.
and like I said, the first iPhone came out the year I graduated. So, I mean, there wasn't as much to anticipate with how quickly that would change everything.
So now you've got a full-time job as well as your freelance work. Tell us about what it's like. You're working on with the Marvel company and Tops. What kinds of things? What kinds of things are you producing with them?
Yeah. Okay, so right now, yeah, I do work full time with the Tops company, TOPPS. Most of you probably know them as the baseball and bubblegum people. Yeah, so they're also trying to move with the times. So I work with their mobile app group. We have a series of mobile apps where you can log in, collect trading cards, other collectibles, trade
But
them
they're
with
not actual
people.
cards. They're not actual cards.
No, they don't exist physically. They just exist, within your phone.
Uh-huh.
You can collect them. You can, achieve them in different ways through doing different tasks. You can trade them with people all over the world. We've been doing this for a little over probably 6 or 7 years now. I've been with them for almost 5. It's been really interesting. I work specifically with our Marvel entertainment group. So I have meetings with Disney and Marvel people every week. Don't get a lot of didn't get the WandaVision trailer early, but
Uh-huh.
oh well. But yeah, it just lets us do more that, the physical cardboard cards can't do. I'm more increasingly doing motion graphics work because I can make things move. You can make stuff happen on the card, or you tilt the phone and the card does something different.
Wow.
Um, yeah, we're trying to work with the technology more than try to emulate, the old school business model that they've had for 100 years.
We can't flip them against the wall to get the closest one anymore. They have a
Not,
similar
not,
game.
not yet, but we've been working on that.
Some kind of game where two phones would flip cards
Yeah,
somehow.
no, we do play it. We're working on mini games that let you do more with them. But
Yeah.
people love it. And the thing with being a digital product is that we can be really timely.
Yeah.
We still do a lot of sports stuff, and we can have stuff in there as soon as the game is over.
So are there going to be electronic cards that are valuable because they're rare?
Hmm.
How do
Yeah.
they do that? You
Um,
can't be copied.
yeah, it can't be copied. We still maintain the rarity. There's only so many editions that exist of each one.
Oh, clever.
And then, yeah, it's getting weird now because now we're starting to work with blockchain stuff, and I don't know what any of that means, but
Oh my gosh, that'll be interesting. Yeah.
that's another new technology. And I think no matter what, you're going to be a lifelong learner, especially if you want to work in a creative field.
Yeah.
It's great that you go to college or do whatever you do to learn the basics, but however you continue in your chosen career path, you're always going to be picking up new skills. Like I mentioned earlier, like I'm working on learning 3D stuff now. It's really paying off since I'm working on a mobile app.
Hmm.
So
And augmented reality.
uh,
They're doing something with that.
not officially,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's one of those things that's in our sort of sandbox of things that people look at.
But in a year or so, have to become conversant with those technologies, including Bitcoin and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. It's just
A little bit,
trying to be discerning about what you want to learn.
Yeah.
Because you'll never be able to know everything and be able to do it all well. So yeah, I'm trying to choose where my path is going to go. You're not going to just say, hey, I want to be a graphic designer, and you're going to be doing the same task for 60 years. And you probably could, but to me, that would be boring as hell. I really welcome all the new technology and all of the opportunities to learn things and, change my career. My career doesn't look anything now like it did 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah. So being in the company and full time, then they're kind of helping. They're kind of give you some of the guidance as to what technologies are coming up, what they're going to invest in, so you know that. But if you didn't have that, you just kind of have to figure that out yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, I keep an eye on what's going on in the industry.
Uh-huh.
Um,
You'd have to
yeah,
figure out whether or not virtual reality or is going to be worth investing your time in learning new software,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of new stuff like virtual reality, which will probably may or may not be really big. There's always that part where you're still following your interests.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
it's really amazing the variety of things that they do, and they still print the cardboard cards too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
that still makes them a decent amount of money.
yeah,
Uh,
that's pretty incredible. And so you mentioned something about the cards moving. What kind of software is that? You got to learn that a little bit of something to make a card move. Is it Flash or what is that?
um, yeah, there's anything.
Okay.
So basically, I do a lot of really simple
Okay.
animation in Photoshop alone.
Yeah. Okay.
It does have a fairly robust timeline for animation. When that's not enough, then you have to move into the heavier guns like After Effects,
Okay.
or the 3D software I use is called Blender, and that can handle a lot of animation as well.
Were you into comic books when you were younger? Is that a part of your
Yeah,
background?
I was more into the cartoons.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I just didn't have access to comic books.
Uh-huh.
Our corner store just didn't carry them. It just
Well,
wasn't part of my childhood.
but now
The
you
way it
like it.
was. Yeah.
It's very interesting. The artwork is incredible. The way they've been doing it for years.
No, absolutely. Yeah. The way it changes, the different styles, it's just.
And have you met with any of the editorial or writer people who do the writing for
Yeah.
those? This just must be so creative.
I work more with the artists.
Okay.
So we do hire artists from Marvel or just from anywhere that we find them, and to get them to do original drawings for us. And
Uh-huh.
I occasionally get to do drawings myself, so I can draw Spider-Man or whatever I need to, pending approval. But
Uh-huh.
but we're really working on getting to talk to more of the both writers, editors, anybody.
Now, just because every artist isn't going to be isn't extremely talented. There are artists that are talented, and there are good artists, I guess, and great. Uh, you did some of the probably most mundane things you've ever done in your life with Dick's Sporting Goods. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is that a decent living to do as well? I mean, for somebody who's may not have the aspirations or the huge amounts of talent, may say, well, it's design, it's something for the public, make a living. Is it something you could do today to make a living still?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they need somebody to do it, so they'll pay somebody to do it.
Yeah.
But just to add a little more background, yeah, for a few years I was working with Dick's Sporting Goods, working on their, Sunday circulars, just those little folded things that come inside your newspaper. If you
Still do it, right?
for the people that still get newspapers, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they've transitioned at this point to something
Yeah.
better, but I don't know. But yeah, we would call that work production design or
Okay.
production art. Yeah, it's not incredibly creative work, but it's good, steady work. You're more of a technician.
Okay.
You're just working the software like you would a machine or any kind of vaguely repetitive task, but it still needs to be done. And there are people that just enjoy doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's you may get, certainly you could have millions of readers
Hmm.
or something like that. And it's got to be right, it's got to be
Yeah.
correct, and it's got to be attractive. And they
Yeah.
certainly,
It was for me. I can't say I enjoyed the job.
yeah,
I can't say I made a good living off of it at the time. And
yeah.
again, this was back in Pittsburgh, so it was a different standard of living with slightly lower pay.
uh-huh.
It didn't do, yeah, for me. It wasn't great, but and this is the path your career takes is going to
Yeah.
be strange.
Hmm.
It's hard to give advice because some of the breaks you get, you just don't know. And for instance, I'm pretty sure I got the interview at Topps because a robot somewhere scanning resumes saw the word sports in my resume and pushed it to the top of the pile.
Because it's Pittsburgh a few times.
Maybe Pittsburgh, but yeah, definitely the word
Oh,
sport.
sporting goods, sporting goods.
Tops probably saw
Oh,
that,
yeah, okay.
and
That's
yeah, I
funny.
think it. Yeah, and this job I've had for 5 years, it's been one of the best jobs I've ever had, and
That's funny. Because you didn't, I mean, if they put out a thing and said we want, they must have got tons of applications for
oh
something,
yeah,
but you might have been flagged by accident. That's pretty funny. But you got it anyway. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Um, but that's right out of school. I mean, if people can do freelance graphic design at any age, really, can't they? I mean, they don't even have to be in school or going to college at all.
yeah,
In
more
high
than
school, kids can
anything,
apply for those jobs, can't they?
yeah, and it's the software is so readily available,
Yeah.
information is so readily available. There are so many tutorials that you can watch online for free or for very small amounts of money that can make you a very good designer at a very young age, probably much earlier than I started. And
Yeah.
I recommend for anybody to just get out there, try it on your own, make stuff, put it online, and then make more stuff because you're probably going to get better. Keep a portfolio. And, the first jobs you get might not be very good jobs, but those jobs build a resume, and then that eventually gets you the better jobs.
And the portfolio can be, it doesn't have to be for things you've done for pay. It can just be things you've created just to show
Yeah.
your abilities. So, what about the graphic novel trend? Is that still going strong? Are you interested in doing anything in that?
I'm not because I hate drawing the same thing over and over again and trying to make it look the same. So I'm terrible at character art. I
Uh-huh.
just try to avoid it. But yeah, no, graphic novels, comic books, that's still an expanding market. They're still doing pretty well,
Uh-huh.
even on paper or on an app. However, people are ingesting that media now. It's still out there, and people are still buying it.
Hmm. Still growing, still just growing like crazy. I mean, a few years ago, we had some graphic design teachers at my school, and one of the things they always uh, talked about, and sort of lamented, was they couldn't get students who had a history, who understood had a long cultural history about, and they talked about the 50s and the 60s and the cars and the design from those times and the buildings and all the different styles that we've gone through from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I understood what they were talking about. I said I like to see references to those things that I remember too, and you see them once in a while. But is that important today? You think? I mean, for young people, this is 2020. I mean, the 60s are a pretty long time ago. 50s, 60s, and 70s, Art Deco or uh, uh, fins on cars and things like that. Uh, is it meaningful or meaningless to have references like that in your icons? What would you call it? Your iconographic head about things. Do
Oh,
you ever use
absolutely.
those things?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm always looking back. I look for inspiration anywhere. Looking at design history. I mean, some of the best poster work that we've seen came out of the 70s and 60s.
Uh-huh.
Even as far, I mean, almost any decade has its, really great work. I think knowing your history for the industry you're in is really important. Um, you have to know where you came from to know where you're going, and there's a lot you can learn.
Yeah.
These people were good for a reason, and
But the references aren't going to necessarily resonate with young people. if you put
I don't
things.
know. I mean, it's cyclical, so a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff comes back. We're seeing, a lot of stuff that looks very reminiscent of the 60s
Oh,
and
yeah.
70s right now. And,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
these styles come and go. So,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was surprised my kids know some songs from the from a long time ago. How did they know that? I forget they have access to every song ever recorded, and so they've heard things. Same thing for design. Now I've also seen some things like some prints, uh, sometimes drapes or fabric or something like that. And I said, where did this design come from? Is that also that's also a field? Is print design
um, are you talking like
or
things like
fabric?
apparel? Oh yeah, I mean that's that kind of design. Let's see, what would you call that specifically? It's not the kind of design I do,
Yeah,
but that kind of like those interior things like fabrics. I mean, it's a thing. If it exists, I mean, somebody had to design it.
yeah,
You
and
know?
industrial design, things like everyday objects.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's a little more specialized outside of what I do for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, industrial design's also a great career, like the form and function, and
Hmm.
it's not just about how it looks, but it has to be, products have to be comfortable to use. They have to be appealing to look at. They have to be, they have to be able to fit all the components they need to function.
Yeah, there's always something new, and at Target or IKEA or somewhere you go, how do they come up with?
Mhm.
I'm always saying, how do they come up with another version of a mug or a can opener or a pot or a pan? It's like they're always working on making them more ergonomic or even just making them different. You could get something different than you currently have, and you
Right.
like
I
the way it
mean,
looks.
it'd be boring if there was only one mug in the world and they all look the same.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah.
get tired of it. Would be pretty monotonous. I mean,
People want things that look differently just to change their the surroundings uh, from what they have. Now, advertising is probably the biggest area for graphics and design in the world, really, I would suppose.
mhm.
Advertises more than anything else. Um, Marvel, we don't consider the Marvel cars necessarily advertising, though they are somewhat related to other products. So that's something to them. But what about the advertising world? Is that really the biggest area of opportunity for designers?
It used to be. It certainly was. I think we always had this expectation that most of us would end up doing ad work, and it's still a huge industry. It does, it's not the same as it was. I mean, most things have moved online now.
Yeah.
I can't speak too much about it because I haven't worked with any ad agencies. Like, but yeah, there's a lot out there. I think
Yeah.
that's a major thing if that's the sort of work you want to do.
And some of those would be freelance jobs, some of them would be full time.
Mhm.
There's a
Oh,
variety of things.
absolutely.
Yeah. Let's tell us about freelance a little bit. We're in the gig economy for a lot of people who are saying full time jobs just aren't out there, just can't find them, and or they're very difficult to get. A lot of people chasing them. The gig economy, where you might put together a few different things to do, some tedious and mundane, but a gig economy can apply to art pretty well. Do you have to learn a lot about self promotion?
Yeah, I mean, you are a business. You're a business of one person. You have to know how to do everything. You have to handle your accounting. You have to manage your clients. You have to keep track of all the paperwork and keep track of your invoices to make sure you're getting paid on time. And yeah, and you got to get yourself out there. You don't get work if you're not out there. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But yeah, a lot of creative people are working on their own.
Hmm.
I would say that having a full-time job doesn't offer the same benefits that it did 10, 20, even more years ago. My parents pretty much had the same job with the same company for most of their life.
Oh,
And there were reasons for that. I mean, you got pensions, you got taken care of, you got things from them that aren't being offered. Um, uh, you know, the pay I'm making doesn't go as far as what it did years ago. The benefits aren't as good. I'm not going to get a pension. I'm not going to retire from a full-time job that I've had for 20 or 30 years.
right.
You're also not going to get a really good raise pretty much ever unless that comes with a promotion to a higher title. The way people are making more money now is by switching jobs completely. you go from company to company to get more money. There's really not as much expectation that you're going to have any,
Yeah.
large increases working with one company. And yeah, I mean, I can verify that. It's
Yeah. So you'd have to, and doing that, you'd have to be either adding skills or adding levels of responsibility or managing other people, I guess, in order to
yeah.
go up.
If I can't do
Yeah.
something, I can, subcontract that out to somebody else that can.
Hmm.
Less
Hmm.
money for me, but that's how it works. Yeah, I think more and more of us will be working for ourselves in the future, whether we're creative or not. It's just
Uh-huh.
that, at least in America, our we're just not set up for that.
Yeah.
Healthcare being tied to employment doesn't work.
Thanks.
If I were to go out on my own, I would have to pay for my own health insurance. That would change what I pay by 5 or 6 times. Affording healthcare on your own,
Yeah.
it's not manageable, especially as a freelancer doing art. You're just not going to pull in the money you need most times.
Mhm.
The tax situation is different too. A lot of the tax codes, especially here in New York, weren't really built for a lot of people working on their own, and I feel like it's not quite fair. You lose a lot of money in paying the taxes.
Yeah.
Of course, this also opens you up to more benefits through declaring things, and frankly, I pay a guy to deal with that because I just can't. But
And so, what amount of time do you spend on promoting yourself or on doing things related to your freelance work other than the actual doing the art? Is it a huge amount of time?
it should be.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
don't get time to do it.
trying to split between a full-time job and freelance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that poses a lot of really unique challenges, especially with time management.
Yeah.
It's tough because you're on all the time. You're constantly trying to work, and that can really wear on you. You know, I try to send out a promotion to art directors at least once every 2 months. I take my latest couple illustrations, put them into an email, and I blast that out to a couple hundred art director contacts that I have, and just say, hey, I'm here. Here's what I'm working on. Here's some new stuff. Take a look. Here's the website. Get in touch if you need anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have repeat clients that you reach out to once in a while just to remind them that you're there.
Yeah.
Or word of mouth, people that you've worked for will do the work for you, and
Mm-hmm.
you're really lucky. And yeah.
I've heard a lot about freelance that half or more of the ability to get good freelance work is not just the work you do, but the relationship and the way you work with people. Has that been important to you, part of your success in that area?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons that working as a freelance illustrator and designer is so tedious, is because a good portion of your time is trying to advertise yourself, trying to keep track of
Yeah.
the paperwork and doing all the administrative stuff, because you really are, in the eyes of the IRS, a company,
Yeah.
of one person, and you have to do a lot of the same stuff that like real companies have to do.
But I also mean working for somebody as a freelancer, if you do things on time, you do exactly what they want. They don't have to
Mm-hmm.
go back and forth too many times, or you don't give them trouble about it. Does that make it a lot easier for people to work with you? I mean, you're more likely to get repeat work.
That really depends. I mean, some clients are better than others, and
Yeah.
some of them really are happy to let you be the professional and do what you need to do.
Uh-huh.
Others want to art direct you to death and change everything. And
What does that mean? What does that mean? Art directed at death.
basically, well, when you're working with an actual art director, that's great because they usually give you good constructive feedback
Uh-huh.
that you can work with, and they ask for changes and edits, and basically just try to guide the direction that you're going in
Yeah.
to meet their needs. Um, you end up working with a lot of smaller clients that are maybe just a guy that owns his own business, but he wants a logo. He might not know anything about design, but he has this really strong idea of what he wants for
Yeah.
no good reason.
Yeah.
And you'll get a lot of clients like that too. And at a certain point, you can you don't have to work with every client. You
Yeah.
can turn down
Yeah.
jobs. And
I think I've seen a parody of that or something where he says, make it more, more this or more that. And you don't know what he's trying to communicate. And you can't please him because you don't know what he really wants. That must be hard. But yeah, then you get to decide. Is there a point where you don't have to look for work anymore? They're always looking for you. I mean, you hope to get to that point.
I would love to get to that point. I'm not at that point, but I mean, I have a full-time job, so I'm not actively pushing as much as I could.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of artists, illustrators, designers, what have you out there that they work strictly for themselves and they're getting enough work that they can turn down work, or they can, subcontract it to other people, or, or maybe they just make their own company.
Just to give somebody an idea what kind of, I mean, I really have no idea what kind of pay you would get for an illustration. What can you give us a ballpark about what you get for an illustration? For what would you do for an article, for a magazine, or for a newspaper? What's it around?
Yeah, it's a really non-standardized system, so it varies wildly. And some of the big players don't pay as much as you think they would.
Mm-hmm.
The New York Times is notorious for being terrible at paying people.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the fee is very small compared to what you think that they would offer.
Yeah.
I can say with like some of the magazines I've worked with, like mid-level magazines that you may have heard about, but aren't, too big for a half-page illustration. Yeah, you can get, $500 to $1,000.
Okay.
But there are some magazines that'll want a full cover illustration, and they'll pay maybe less. They'll offer you less than that.
They figure they're doing you a favor, giving you a cover.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or maybe this. I mean, not so much. It's not as. I don't want to assume it's as insidious as that. I mean,
Yeah.
Budgets are tough, especially with print media. These people really aren't making a lot of money. We're seeing a lot of these places fold.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened to me yet, but I've known a lot of people that haven't gotten paid by certain magazines, and those magazines don't exist anymore, or they get bought out by another company to keep them afloat. And then once a company switches hands, technically they're supposed to also be taking on all the debt and dealing with that, but sometimes you just don't. And when you're just one person working alone versus a magazine that won't pay you, your recourse is limited.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough
because you can't afford a lawyer to chase these people all the time. Things are getting better in New York City and state. Certain laws have been passed here. Specifically, a couple of years ago, the Freelance Isn't Free Act got a lot of traction. That gives much more leverage to people working as independent contractors in New York to go after non-payment.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, that's not true of the rest of the country. And then it gets even worse worldwide. If somebody in China or Eastern Europe takes an image of mine off the internet and publishes it in a magazine somewhere, next to nothing that you can do about it.
Yeah, that would be impossible.
How about the
electronic world of things where you produce that are only going to be used electronically, whether it's the cards or whether it's whether people do things for games or other places? Does the artist have protection for that too when it's used electronically? Or I guess it's part of the contract.
Yeah, it depends on your contract that you sign. And, I think we're artists, so we're not always very good at negotiating contracts. So I'd say more often than not, a lot of people get taken advantage of. It's just, unfortunately, just one of those things that should be taught more strenuously in art school.
Yeah.
About how to deal with clients and contracts and all the paperwork that goes with it. But yeah, you give you're not selling them an image, you're selling them the rights to an image, basically. And it should be called out very specifically what it's for. When magazines and newspapers started going digital not a couple years ago now, many years ago. We didn't do a good job negotiating that. Basically, a lot of people the rights to reuse an image in the online edition did not get any additional fee.
Yeah.
And
So it's a newspaper. We get to use it online free,
yeah,
included, and it's going to go to millions and millions of people, perhaps. And
right. Or you work with a smaller client that might not know what they want or what they're doing because they're not professional art buyers. You're mostly likely dealing with the guy that owns the business. They'll say crazy stuff like, "Oh, I just want all the rights forever, and I just want you to sign this over to me." And it's like, well, all right, back up a little bit because that's not how this works.
mm-hmm.
You don't. The copyright doesn't go to you. I maintain that forever. But you really just you got to learn all the legal crap. There's a
It's,
lot of unpleasant.
yeah. It sounds like it's the kind of field that might benefit from having apprenticeships.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists and designers are starting to do mentorships now, and they're
Mentorship.
taking on apprentices and well, interns, I would say.
Yeah.
Which is another thing. Very good work in New York. If you're doing an internship, it has to be paid here. I think that was a law that got passed here a few years ago. Unpaid internships.
Right.
I would be very wary of those, especially if you're doing actual work for the company.
Yeah.
But I mean, I did an unpaid internship when I was an undergrad. Didn't really do much for me. They got some free work. I wasted a couple afternoons. I don't know. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, but all the complexity of being a freelancer it's not easy to learn. It's learning on your own. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, but complicated world, and for talent is a big part of what drives people's success. But it's also hard work and understanding all the other complexities of what you do, and it makes it harder, but ultimately satisfying so far as a career path for you. Is this pretty happy about?
Yeah, I mean there are worse ways to make a living out there for sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's work. No matter how you look at it, it's work.
Yeah.
But it is very often good work. I make stuff that I like. I have a lot of opportunities to learn new things even on the job, which is fantastic. Yeah, I mean my career's taken several different turns, and yeah, I mean I'm happy with where it is. I'm happy with where it's going to continue to go, I hope. Would I like to get more work? Would I like to have more illustration jobs? Sure, but I mean that's just you get what you put into it. So just keep trying, keep working. There's always something new to learn or something new to try. Just get out there, get your work in front of people, get seen.
Yeah, but the future looks like more opportunities, not fewer.
I think so.
Yeah, as long as you keep learning.
Yeah, I mean technology expands. We still have a very consumer culture. People are taking media in more than we've ever seen. Whether it's movies, books, online, this or that, video games, interactive, whatever. There's always just more and more, and it needs people with a creative eye. And I think there's always going to be opportunities if you look for them.
Yeah, certainly. And expressing yourself is still part of what you do, even though it's for other people almost all the time. It still feel like you're expressing yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I still have a small, I do fine art on the side too.
Okay.
I've had a few gallery shows in the past couple of years, and art has been published in books.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you do it. I mean,
sounds good. And any one piece of advice you'd give a young person who's finds himself drawing all the time, or always looking at art, or being involved with creating or making things? What would you say to them to start with if they were in high school?
Hey, I'd say keep doing it. I mean, there is a future for you. You don't be mundane. Do the wild stuff. Do whatever you want, and just keep learning. Keep learning. Try new things. I mean, there are creative jobs out there more than most people know about. So don't take the bad advice from people. Seek out people in creative fields, which is easier than ever to do via the internet, and talk to them. Don't talk to a guidance counselor that doesn't know what they're doing. Don't don't talk to your high school English teacher. You know, seek out people that are in these jobs. The creative community is full of some of the nicest, most generous people that you are going to find.
Uh-huh.
And they are always happy to, you know, do an interview, talk to you on the phone, give you advice, take a look at your portfolio. I mean, they will give you their time if they have it, and they'll be happy to do it.
And to the parents who say, how are you going to make a living in that artwork? You can't make a living doing that. Learn a trade, learn a skill. What should they say right to their parents' face? Besides obscenities.
Yeah, besides that, just say, watch me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
Well, you could say to them, look around you, folks. You're looking
yeah,
at something designed or drawn or art all the time.
yeah. I mean, just pull out your phone. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a living piece of design work.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. People don't think about it, and it's more a level of confidence and as you said, drive and perseverance. If a parent could have faith in a kid's drive and perseverance, right?
Oh, absolutely. That always helps. Yeah.
Discourage them. Were your parents supportive the whole time?
Uh, yeah, they were supportive, if not understanding, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they always encouraged me to do things, even if they didn't understand what I was doing or where it was going or what possibilities actually existed. You know, they
Uh-huh.
never tried to stop me.
Yeah.
They didn't try to push me toward any career. So I was really fortunate in that, you know. And so, yeah, I went off. In my case, it was college.
Yeah.
Maybe for someone else, it's just a couple of courses at a local, you know, design club or
Mm-hmm.
some kind of school. But yeah, you can learn things anywhere.
Well,
It's
they must be amazed at what you do now.
yeah, yeah, they are. Still
Yeah.
don't fully understand it, but they're amazed nonetheless, I think.
Where the cards? Where are the cards?
Yeah.
The actual cards. That's great.
Mm.
Well, thanks so much, Steve Cupp, coming to us from New York City, working for Tops and doing your own freelance work. Your website, stevecup.com, as
Yep.
well, right?
That's
For
it.
some of your stuff is for sale. A lot of your stuff is for sale. Great artwork, and those are limited edition things too, right?
Yeah, most of what I sell is hand pulled
Yeah,
prints, so they're
that's
limited.
great. And so we'll we'll put all those links up, and love to see all that material. Fantastic work, Steve, and thanks so much for
Thank
being here.
you.
The experiences, we appreciate it.
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Okay, thanks a lot. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, you too.
Bye bye.